Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're uncovering exactly how ancient humans managed to keep their incredibly fragile babies alive over 300,000 years of evolution. It's a really fascinating story. We're talking incredible biological constraints, brilliant social engineering, and honestly, the deep, enduring power of human connection. Let's jump right in.
Okay, let's put you in the shoes of a newborn human for a second. Imagine yourself. You weigh about 3 kilograms, you absolutely cannot walk, you can't talk, and you can't even regulate your own body temperature. You literally have no concept of what a predator is, but predators absolutely know what you are, making you, biologically speaking, a complete disaster waiting to happen. Yet somehow, thousands of generations of ancient humans figured out how to keep something this catastrophically fragile alive. And this is where we see the stark contrast between us and most other mammals. Think about a baby giraffe. It drops nearly 2 meters to the ground, lands, gets up, and is literally trotting around within an hour. A baby horse, on its feet in less than 2 hours. Even chimpanzees can cling to their mothers almost immediately. But a human newborn? No way. They are completely and utterly helpless for months, relying entirely on others for their survival. Section 1. The biological disaster. The evolutionary trade-off. So to understand this, we need to look at a concept scientists call secondary ultrashiality. Now, I know that sounds like a super technical term, but it essentially just means human babies are born premature by design. It's not a flaw, it's a very specific evolutionary trade-off. We are born earlier relative to our overall development than almost any other primate on Earth. Now, what's really interesting here is exactly why this early birth happens. Well, it's all about the brain. To put it into perspective, a chimpanzee's brain is about 45% developed at birth, while our massive human brains are only 25% developed. This means an enormous amount of human brain development, the kind of growth that takes other animals maybe a few weeks or months, takes us years. And all of that massive brain growth has to happen completely exposed to the outside world. You see, because a fully developed human brain could never actually fit through the birth canal, evolution forced us to give birth early. Anthropologists call this the obstetric dilemma. The big takeaway here is profound. Because of our giant brains, a human infant cannot survive alone, not even theoretically. Our species absolutely cannot reproduce successfully without intense social support.
Section 2. The literal village, engineering social survival. It takes a village to raise a child. We've all heard the phrase, right? You see it on motivational posters, people say it at baby showers. But in the context of early human evolution, it wasn't just some cute metaphor. It was a literal biological survival strategy. Without the village, the child died. It was really that simple. Anthropologists actually call this cooperative breeding. In most primate species, child rearing is almost entirely on the mother, which obviously limits how many offspring she can have. But humans dramatically broke this pattern. We shifted the burden of child rearing from just the biological parents to the entire hunter-gatherer group. It's survival engineering at its finest, really, meaning no single adult was ever the sole point of failure. This brings us to a really fascinating concept from the 1990s known as the grandmother hypothesis, proposed by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes. Did you know human menopause is actually an extreme evolutionary anomaly in the animal kingdom? Well, this theory proposes that human females live for decades past their reproductive years. Specifically so, experienced grandmothers could stop having babies themselves and invest all their energy into helping raise everyone else's. And the data backs this up for sure. Having a grandmother present dramatically increases a child's survival rate past age 2. But hey, it wasn't just grandmothers, aunts, and older siblings doing the work. Fathers were incredibly present as well. When researchers look at modern hunter-gatherer groups to get a window into our past, like the Aka of Central Africa, they find that fathers are within arm's reach of their infants a staggering 47% of the time. The child was completely embedded in a dense web of constant, overlapping relationships. Section 3. Ancient survival engineering. The methods. When we compare ancestral practices to our modern norms, the contrast is absolutely stark. We've gone from constant contact, shared sleeping, and communal feeding right over to separate nurseries, isolated strollers, and perfectly pureed foods. It represents a massive historical shift from communal resources to modern isolation. So let's break down exactly what our ancestors were actually doing. Take breastfeeding, for example. In ancient societies, breastfeeding continued for 2 to 4 years, which lines up perfectly with the biological rhythm of our species. And it occurred incredibly frequently, up to 4 times an hour. This wasn't just about nutrition. It actively regulated the infant's stress response. Crucially, all this constant nursing acted as a natural contraceptive, suppressing ovulation to safely space births 3 to 4 years apart. Plus, wet nursing, breastfeeding someone else's child, was a vital community resource that kept orphaned or sick children alive.
Then there's the harsh reality of a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Ancestor mothers had to gather food over incredibly uneven terrain, surrounded by predators, all while keeping a helpless baby alive. The solution? Constant physical contact. What we'd call baby wearing today. This is deeply rooted in our natural biology. Just think about a newborn's surprisingly strong grasping reflex. Cross-cultural research shows that this constant contact reduces infant crying by roughly 50%, compared to modern infants who spend a lot of time alone in cribs or bouncers.
Eventually, of course, a baby has to eat solid food, and without those handy organic chart pouches, ancient humans relied on pre-mastication. Basically, adults literally chewing food before transferring it into the baby's mouth. I know. By modern hygiene standards, that sounds pretty disgusting. But here's the twist. It likely transferred highly beneficial oral microbiota that supported immune development. Combined with a wildly varied diet of marrow, plants, and fish, these hunter-gatherer kids actually had fewer cavities and better nutrition than later early agricultural populations did. And what about nighttime? Well, for 99% of human history, literally nobody slept alone. Co-sleeping was the absolute default human behavior. Sleeping pressed right up against an adult body provided vital physical contact that regulated the infant's own unpredictable temperature and breathing. Actually, anthropologist James McKenna suggests that the normal stimulation provided by a sleeping adult's breathing helps prevent sudden infant death syndrome by basically reminding the infant's nervous system to keep breathing. The separate, quiet nursery? That is a very, very recent invention.
Section 4. The modern experiment. Grief and progress.
We do have to impartially acknowledge that the past wasn't some romantic utopia. Without germ theory or modern sanitation, the numbers are pretty devastating. Best estimates suggest that in Paleolithic and early Neolithic populations, a staggering 30 to 50% of children died before they even reached age 5. But they didn't just passively accept this. Ancient humans fought back using empirically identified plant medicines. We're talking willow bark for fevers, honey for wounds, and garlic for its antimicrobial properties. And when they inevitably lost children, the archaeological record shows they processed their profound grief through deeply embedded community rituals and carefully arranged burials, sometimes even adorned with flowers. They cared deeply, and they slowly, painstakingly accumulated knowledge over generations. And that accumulated knowledge eventually led us to where we are today. Thanks to vaccines, clean water, and modern medicine, we have miraculously driven child mortality down by roughly 96% since 1800. That is one of the greatest achievements in human history for sure. But in achieving this, specific economic changes like urbanization, the two-income household, and geographic separation have completely dismantled those extended social networks that once naturally distributed the sheer exhaustion of childcare, which leaves us running an unprecedented experiment on our own species. Today, we're seeing high rates of modern parental burnout, postpartum depression, and deep isolation. We have built extraordinary technology to cure the biological threats that once took so many young lives. But as we look to the future, the final provocative question we really have to ask ourselves is, we cured the biological threats, but can we rebuild the village? Thank you for exploring this fascinating journey of human survival with us today.